Welcome back to our third and final part of this three-part video series on Visio data linking to Excel. On the first part, we went through the setup and the basic linking of the data. On the second part, we focused on creating the stencils and setting up our data graphics and actually pulling the data up into our workspace. On this one, we're going to look at how we change and update data. So if you haven't watched the first two videos, I strongly encourage you to go watch those videos first before you watch this, unless you're just here for a refresher on this particular piece. In that case, let's continue. So as we discussed in the last pieces, the data that we have done here in this external data is not reflective of what's in the spreadsheet. We're not looking directly at what's in the spreadsheet. This is actually imported from the spreadsheet. Now you can set the data refresh up. If you go in here, there's some pretty complex configuration you can do here where you can actually tell it to refresh it regularly, but we're not going to do that. I'm not going into that right now. All I really want to do here is just show what happens if we change something in the spreadsheet, how we can change the Visio and how we make it change the Visio. So looking at our build sheet, and let's say that we find out that these web servers are actually going to be IIS servers. They're going to be Windows servers. So we're going to update these 4 servers, and they're going to be Windows servers. We're going to come over here. We're going to say it's Win 2012 R2. And we don't want to drag that down because then we'll end up with R2, R3, R4, and that's obviously not right. You know, this could be relevant for really any field you want to change. Maybe the host name is wrong. Maybe the IP address changed. Maybe you didn't know the IP address at the time, and now you do, and you're coming back to add the IP address. All sorts of reasons why you may need to come back and update your spreadsheet. Maybe you want to add more servers. You know, there's all sorts of reasons. In fact, that's not a bad idea. Let's also add, 3 servers, okay? And obviously they're not node 13, so we're going to just grab and 14, 15, 16, and let's have it rechange the names there. But these servers are going to be, let's say this one's going to be an FTP server. This one's going to be a database server. And this one's going to be an email server. And they're going to be Linux, except the email server is going to be an Exchange server, so it's also going to be Windows. Okay. So we're going to save our spreadsheet. So you make your changes to your spreadsheet. Again, we changed operating system on existing servers, and we added some servers. So we're going to hit save. Make sure you hit save, because it's, of course, when you have the file open and you're working in it, you're working in memory. You have to save it to the disk, and then when it goes to look at the file, it's going to look at it on the disk. So we're up to data. We're going to go refresh. Now you can normally just hit refresh all. I'm going to refresh data just to kind of see it happen as it happens. I hit refresh, completed, and you can see already not only did our data change down here in our external data, but our shapes have already changed as well. So you can imagine if you're working on a diagram that has 25, 50, 100, 200 shapes on it, how powerful this is to be able to quickly modify data. It's so much easier to change it in a spreadsheet and then hit refresh and see it change up here. Now, to my knowledge, there is not a way to tell Visio to add additional objects once they've been added, because it doesn't know what these are, right? So we have our stencil up here that we've been working on. And again, we know these are www servers. This has changed this data, but we have these other 3 servers up here. And there's a couple ways we can do this. We can either, go find. So I had these open from earlier, and I don't need these, so let's close some of these stencils. We don't need network symbols. We don't need computers and monitors because we're working out of servers. So we have these different servers. So I can either from here select FTP server, pick the server that's an FTP server, drag it up, and of course it's going to take on my data graphics. And if it didn't, I could come over here and drop this down and pick the data graphics that I wanted to use. Or I could also have, if I'm sitting on our stencil, I could just drag all of these up and sort of sort them out. And you know what? This is an email server, so let's put it up in our front end area. And so then what I could do is I could go click on servers, and I have to change the stencil over here to do this. And because I'm using Visio 2013, this is the functionality of Visio 2013, I can actually right click on the shape, and this icon right here lets me change the shape. I can drop it down and it's going to show me whatever stencil I'm currently focused on. Now I can change that over here, but I find it easier to click over on the left and then come over here and change it if I want to do that. So I can change this to an email server. I can look at this one. I know this one's FTP. Click it, change to the FTP server. And this one's a database, so I can right click it and change it to a database server. So really whichever one you feel is easier. It's honestly probably easier to select it and then drag it up one at a time and set it up. But it really just depends on what you're doing, how many objects you need to do, how many are different, and whatnot. So we have our shapes up here, and we've changed the text. Now keep in mind, I mentioned, I think in one of the earlier videos that, I can't simply double click this and type, I mean I can, but so this is your shape data. That is a different text field than what we're showing. The data graphic is a different text field. You notice when I hit enter, it goes away, and I'll show you why. If I'm, sorry about that. Let's mute that so that doesn't happen again. Okay, I see why it's in it. So click on that. If I do edit data graphic, one of the options that I selected here, hide shape text when data graphic is applied. So I do that so that we don't have text overlapping and making a mess of my diagram. So if you find yourself, let's go ahead and save that. If you find yourself adding, if you need to link data to a separate spreadsheet, so let's say this is already linked to our sheet 1 and to our project build sheet. But let's say you get an updated build sheet, and instead of copying the data from the new build sheet to the old build sheet and then doing refresh, you just want to link to the new build sheet. You can do that. Now, again, I can't stress enough, this data is static within Visio. So if you link data from a new data source, you're going to import it in, and what it's going to do, the same way that Excel has different sheets down at the bottom, it'll give you different data sources down here to choose from. So you can then link that data from the new source to the objects by using the automatically link button. So what that'll do is it will go through and it'll find all of the shapes, and basically you'll tell it what field to match. So if you choose hostname, since hostname has been your primary key here, and you say, all right, everything, link everything on this page, link the hostname to the new source hostname, it will then link your shapes to the new data set. It will still be linked to the old data set. So if you want to unlink it, you'll have to manually unlink it or just right click and remove the data source. So finally, just one last little tip here. When you're working with a lot of these objects and we're only showing a limited amount of data here for visuals, we really just wanted to show what would be the most useful information for someone looking at this visual up here. But let's say you emailed this diagram over to somebody and they want to know which server down here is we're talking about. You can actually just right click, select data, show linked row, and you'll highlight the row for that object. So if somebody needed to know, all right, well, server 10, I need to know what its CPU and RAM is. They could either come down here and sort it and scroll down them, or you just right click to show linked row and it'll highlight it for you. And now you can see, I'm requesting this on May 15th. It's 4 cores, 16 gigs of RAM. It's a virtual server. It's a 40 gig operating system drive, 100 gig data drive. You have all of your information that isn't visible on the diagram itself. It's really easy to find. So that concludes this tutorial on Visio and data linking. I hope it was useful for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment, and I'll do my best to answer those. Otherwise, enjoy.